Welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. Coming up, National Assembly resumes from recess. Security takes front burner as lawmakers in the Senate summon service chiefs over rising killings, kidnappings across the country. And still on security, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Abbas Tajuddin, urges President Bola Tinubu to take tough decisions. The AFCC holds anti-corruption dialogue, says Commission has uncovered a religious sect helping terrorists launder money. Plus, officials call for blood donations after a huge gas explosion kills at least 3 and injures nearly 300 in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. That's News Round in View. We'll begin News Round at the National Assembly, where the security situation in the country took center stage as lawmakers resumed from recess. At the Senate, the lawmakers have summoned service chiefs over the spate of insecurity in the country. This was a unanimous call by the lawmakers after an emergency session on the first legislative day of the year.
Senators are resuming plenary for the first time this year, and the usual exchange of pleasantries precedes legislative activities. The day's proceedings starts with the reading of the President's communications to the Senate.
I hereby seek the kind confirmation of the Senate in respect of the disengagement from office of Babatunde Irukere as the Executive Vice Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the FCCPC. I am pleased to present for confirmation by the Senate the appointment of Oluwole Adamawa as the Executive Director, Midstream and Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund in the Petroleum Regulatory Authority.
After which, the Senate then proceeds into an executive session. After about 2 hours behind closed doors, the Senate then reconvenes and resolves to invite the service chiefs next week over the spate of insecurity in the country.
The Senate notes with sadness the rising spate of killings, kidnappings, banditry, and other criminal activities in the nation. Senate equally notes the various kidnappings within the Federal Capital Territory where victims have been killed after collecting ransom. Senate is also aware of several cases of kidnappings all over the country.
Those who are in support of this motion are second, they say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
At the close of plenary, Senator Adamawa gives more insight on the Senate's decision.
We are very disturbed. Without security, nothing can happen. And that's why each and every senator will speak about what's happening in his constituency when the service chiefs come. And we will demand for immediate solution.
Meanwhile, the Senate adjourned plenary to February 6 to allow lawmakers to participate in Saturday's by-election. With the resolution by the Senate to invite the service chiefs, we hope that they would come up with better solutions to address the insecurity plaguing the nation. From the National Assembly, Kumbi Aboluade, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, at the lower chamber, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Abbas Tajuddin, is urging President Bola Tinubu not to shy away from taking tough decisions, including making changes within the nation's security apparatus. The Speaker made his views in his welcome address to members of the House at the resumption of plenary for the year 2024. Mr. Abbas is also proposing a national legislative security summit to prefer solutions to the security situation in the country.
It's the first plenary of the year as the House of Representatives reconvenes 1 month after its last sitting. The Speaker begins with an address specifically on the state of the nation.
On the economic front, our country continues to grapple with numerous hurdles that impede our growth trajectory. The continuous depreciation of the naira has far-reaching consequences, given that Nigeria relies heavily on imports for many essential items, including fuel and machinery.
The security situation is a major concern for him as he asks the president to go tougher.
Indeed, the time has come for the president to demand greater performance and accountability from our service chiefs and all security and enforcement agencies. I implore the president not to shy away from making the tough decisions. If necessary, we must not hesitate to enact changes within our security apparatus for the cost of inaction if inaction is far too great to bear. In light of these challenges, I propose convening a national legislative security summit. This summit will serve as a crucible for ideas where stakeholders from diverse sectors will forge enduring solutions to our security woes.
For matters of urgent national importance that follow, further buttress the need for urgent action against insecurity, as the spokesperson of the House is moved to tears over the murder of two traditional rulers in Ekiti State on the 29th of January.
The House recognizes that the entire people of Imojo, in Oye local government and Esu, in Ikole local government, and the entire state have been thrown into mourning on account of the loss of our highly revered traditional rulers who were forces for community development, peace and stability in the constituency and the entire state. Take it easy.
The House then adjourns abruptly for a week to allow members campaign and participate in the by-elections scheduled for Saturday, the 3rd of February across the country. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And to election matters now, the Supreme Court has affirmed the election of Governor Amadu Fintiri of Adamawa State. The 5-member panel of the Apex Court, headed by Justice John Okoro, unanimously dismissed the appeal of the candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the last governorship election in the state, Mrs. Aishatu Dahiru, grossly lacking in merit. The court held that the initial declaration of Mrs. Dahiru as the winner of the election by the state's resident electoral commissioner was unlawful and a nullity.
This is the last governorship election appeal judgment for this cycle, and the petition of the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress in Adamawa State, Mrs. Aishatu Dahiru, popularly known as Binani, is in focus before a 5-member panel of justices of the Supreme Court. In dismissing the appeal for lacking in merit, the Apex Court held that the act of the resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa State, Mr. Hudu Ari, was an act of irresponsibility and criminality. Justice Okoro further held that it is the returning officer appointed by INEC that has a duty to announce results, explaining that any other person who assumes that role acts illegally. The court further held that Binani engaged in self-deceit by hanging to the unlawful and unconstitutional acts of Mr. Ari to believe she was a winner of the governorship election. The court questioned the decision of the REC to hastily declare the results when collation was yet to be concluded. The Apex Court added further that the REC ought to have appeared before the Adamawa State Election Tribunal to defend the results he declared. The justices warned public officers to always act within the law in discharging their duties and not get carried away by greed. The court added that the time has come for people of dignity and integrity to be appointed to conduct elections, as this will make Nigerians have faith in the democracy. The court added that the time has come for people of dignity and integrity to be appointed to conduct elections, as this will make Nigerians have faith in the democracy.
We are very pleased with the outcome that the mandate expressed by the people of Adamawa State has affirmed by INEC, as affirmed by the tribunal, as affirmed by the Court of Appeal, has been affirmed today by the Supreme Court.
The governor also reacts to the Supreme Court's judgment.
To my people in the state that have stood firm with me throughout this trial time, I'm grateful for them. And to my entire well-wishers across the country, this victory will only spur us more to do better for our state. We will continue to ensure that only the best is delivered to our people. And I call on every citizen of the state to join me in building the greater Adamawa state.
This judgment finally ends all legal battle on who is the actual governor of Adamawa State. Governor Fintiri hopes he can now fully focus on governance in the state. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
And back to legislative matters now. The Rivers State House of Assembly have accused the state governor, Siminalayi Fubara, of not following due process in the appointment of heads of 3 government parastatals in the state. The lawmakers made their positions known during an emergency plenary session at the House of Assembly quarters in Port Harcourt, the state capital.
The Rivers State House of Assembly members arriving for an emergency plenary after their last sitting when they overruled the governor and enacted 4 laws. As they settle down, this time around, the House is tackling Governor Fubara over his recent appointments, just as the majority leader draws the attention of the Speaker to these appointments.
His Excellency Sir Siminalayi Fubara, GSS, Governor of Rivers State, has approved the following appointments. Mr. Goodluck Ben as acting chairman of Local Government Service Commission. Engineer Dr. Mrs. Ine Briggs as acting Director General, Review on Public Procurement.
The Speaker explains that there is a proper mode of appointment as provided for in the law, adding that there is no provision for an acting chairman.
The position of the chairman of the Rivers State Local Government Service Commission is clearly provided for by this law and by this section, meaning that the only thing available for the governor to do is to submit his nominees to us for screening and confirmation.
During the session, some of the lawmakers also raised questions about the legal existence of the new Cities Development Authority.
So if the governor at this point wants to set up such an institution, I think what he needs to do is to bring it as a bill to this house, to look into it and see and get the approval of the house.
In a tyrannical manner.
The State Assembly Speaker also accuses the governor of tyranny, even as they resolve to write a letter to Governor Fubara warning him against continuing with his actions.
All that the governor needs to do, if he wants to create that authority, is to send in an executive bill to us. Distinguished colleagues, what we need to do at this point in time is to write to the governor. I think what we need to do is to write to the governor and draw his attention to these anomalies.
The new developments in the House of Assembly have continued to fuel speculation about whether the House will resume with their now dropped impeachment proceedings against the government. Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
Now, we know the Assembly has now written to Governor Fubara asking him to withdraw his appointments of the heads of 3 government parastatals. Well, when Newsround returns, a Kenya gas blast kills at least 3 and injures hundreds. Stay with us. Details in a moment. Welcome back. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission have revealed that it uncovered how a religious body was laundering money for terrorists in the country. The chairman of the commission, Mr. Olaolukayode, made the disclosure during a one-day dialogue on youth, religion, and a fight against corruption in Abuja. He explained that the discovery was made when he served as a chief of staff to the chairman of the commission between 2016 and 2018.
Thank you very much. Take a seat.
This event is to mark the first 100 days in office for the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. It's a gathering of senior government officials, religious and traditional leaders, members of the academia, young people, and members of the civil society. The focus of the one-day dialogue is youth, religious leaders, and the fight against corruption. And the chairman speaks on some of the commission's experience in dealing with religious bodies.
We were able to trace about over 7 billion to a particular religious body. And so what did I do? I said, look, write a letter to the leader of that religious sect. We did. And the next thing we saw was a restraining order. The money traced to that religious organization to their leaders. We got a restraining order stopping us from inviting them, stopping us from recovering the money. Meanwhile, people have died along the line. When I was chief of staff, we investigated the issue of money laundering. Somewhere in this country, there's a particular religion, a sect, that laundered money for terrorists. According to the EFCC, over 60 billion naira was recovered between October 2023 and January 19, 2024. And a total of 747 convictions were secured by the commission during the same period. The effort of the commission is recognized by religious and traditional leaders. However, they made suggestions on how to fight corruption, especially among young people.
Let us not forget to teach by example. Let us demonstrate very clearly always by our way of life that honesty is possible and rewarding.
Care must be taken in who you appoint into which office if you really want to succeed as a government. These appointees must have no records of criminal activities. They must not have character deficits.
An average youth will think that these leaders, for them to be getting away with a lot of things, that means I have to look for a quick way to get to the top as well. So the system is actually brewing and brewing corruption.
We are in a terrain now where vice chancellors can hardly even correct their pupils or their graduates or undergraduates because of reprisals that we fear may come on to the universities or vice chancellors.
Taking into cognizance the demographic prediction of Nigeria's population by 2050, which stands at 400 million people, the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, says more needs to be done to foster communications and turn Nigeria's population to dividends for the country.
Nigerians have been victims of mislabeling. Such gross misrepresentation fails to reflect the true essence of our diverse and resilient nation of 226 million people. Our nation comprises hardworking, honest citizens who contribute significantly to various fields globally, from medicine to artificial intelligence.
The Vice President also launched the Interfaith Preaching and Teaching Manuals, as well as the Commission's Fraud Risk Assessment Prevention and Control Project for ministries, departments, and agencies.
Meanwhile, the chairman of Channels Media Group, Dr. John Moma, believes Nigeria can win the war against corruption by properly channeling the energy and the innovation of young people. Dr. Moma was speaking as a guest speaker at the EFCC Dialogue on Youth, Religion, and the Fight Against Corruption. He explains that young people can be guided by religious teachings that promote morality and integrity.
The second session of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Dialogue offered an opportunity to break down the theme of the day: youth, religion, and the fight against corruption. The chairman of Channels Media Group, Dr. John Momo, is the guest speaker, and he lays the foundation for the discussion.
Today, we stand at a crossroads. One path leads down a dangerous road towards unethical cyber activities. The other, a road less traveled, is paved with innovation, with hard work, and legitimate success. This is the path of entrepreneurship. A journey not just of making a living, but of making a life. So as youth, let's ask ourselves this question. Which road do I take to get ahead? Do I follow the route or the path of hush puppy? Or do I toe the path of an Eyolua Aboeji, the unicorn? That's some food for thought for us.
Citing the Holy Scriptures, Dr. Momo calls for a proper approach to tackle corruption, especially among young people.
Both the Bible and the Quran encourage young people to live lives of moral and ethical integrity. On youth and corruption, the book of Proverbs, for instance, offers practical advice for young people, emphasizing the value of wisdom. And on its stance against corruption, the Quran explicitly condemns dishonesty and corruption. Surah Al-Baqarah warns against consuming wealth unjustly. The battle against corruption is one that we can win. It requires the energy and innovation of the youth, guided by the moral and ethical teachings of religion. Together, let's pave the way for a future where integrity is the cornerstone of our society, our country, Nigeria.
The panel session is chaired by the former Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, and he starts by sharing his views on the fight against corruption.
Perhaps this is the time to get back to the real core of having children, not just being daddy and mommy, but really doing the parenting work.
The issues raised by the guest speaker formed the basis for the conversation by the panelists.
Government itself must have capacity, commitment, and leadership by government. They must also facilitate access to basic needs. We need to be re-evaluating our values. What do we really consider wrong? What do we really consider desirable to achieve? Is integrity as important as being rich? Is society recognizing somebody with integrity as important as somebody who is rich? I think that is one of the things we are doing today. That
don't just give an award for the best behaved child and then the first in the class in chemistry, physics, math, etc. Where's the most just student in the class? Where's the most compassionate? Where's the most trusting? Where's the most helpful? Let's look for good behavior and reward it. Otherwise, you feel that just academic excellence is what's required, and that sometimes at the cost of being the most excellent human being.
Values of right and wrong. And so if you have predominantly an irresponsible older generation, you're going to create a replacement generation with the same quality. And therefore, we encourage our young people to pray and seek the virtue of contentment. If you have contentment, you'll be delivered from most of the vices that we drag ourselves into.
One of the highlights at this dialogue is that young people and religious bodies should take ownership of the fight against corruption. Hopefully, this would help reduce corruption in Nigeria. From the nation's capital, Kumbi Aboluwade, Channels Television News.
Our news round ends with a tragic disaster in Kenya, where local officials are calling for blood donations after a huge gas blast in Nairobi, as the country's capital, and it killed at least 3 people, including a child, and injured nearly 300. Houses, businesses and cars were also damaged when a lorry carrying the gas exploded in Embakasi district on Thursday night, igniting a huge ball of fire. The government had said the blast happened at a gas plant and the cause is still being established. Embakasi Police Chief Wesley Akimelto fears that the death toll could rise. The governor of Nairobi County has waived medical bills for survivors who are being treated at facilities run by the county government. And that's News Round for the week. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye-bye.